At 8:30 a.m., everyone ignored him. By 8:45 a.m., their lives were in his hands. In just 15 minutes, a homeless man became the hero of 200 people in a subway station. But how did this happen? The story was hidden in the old military ID buried deep in his bag. Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden courage and split-second heroism, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button. These moments change everything. Union Station Metro, Los Angeles. 8:15 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Marcus Chen had been sitting in the same corner for 3 months now. Corner near the newsstand, close enough to the main walkway that people would see him, but far enough from the turnstiles that security wouldn't move him along too quickly. He had his routine down to a science. Cardboard sign that read, "Veteran, anything helps." Worn military surplus jacket that had seen better days, but still showed the faded outline where patches used to be. A thermos of coffee that a kind woman from the coffee cart had given him yesterday, still half full. But mostly, Marcus watched. 20 years of explosive ordnance disposal training doesn't just disappear because you're homeless. The same skills that kept him alive in Fallujah and Kandahar, situational awareness, pattern recognition, threat assessment, those skills were still sharp. Maybe sharper now, when survival depended on reading every person, every situation, every potential threat or opportunity. Most people walked past without seeing him. Commuters heading to office jobs, students going to class, tourists consulting their phones. They stepped around him like he was part of the architecture, just another piece of urban furniture they'd learned to navigate around. But Marcus saw all of them. He saw the businessman who always bought the same newspaper from the same vendor, the college girl who practiced presentations under her breath while waiting for trains, the maintenance worker who always nodded in his direction, the only person who acknowledged his existence most days. And this morning, he saw something else. 3 men, early 30s, entered the station at 8:22 a.m. Nothing unusual about that. Hundreds of people came through every few minutes. But these 3 were different. They moved together but tried to look separate. Their eyes swept the station in overlapping patterns, covering different zones. And their bags, heavy canvas messenger bags, hung at exactly the wrong angle for laptops or books. The 3 men split up, taking positions at different points in the station. One near the main entrance, one by the central information kiosk, one close to the platform stairs. Triangle formation, maximum coverage, overlapping fields of view. Marcus pulled his knit cap lower and watched through half-closed eyes, using peripheral vision to track all 3 targets. In Baghdad, this was called soft surveillance, gathering intelligence without appearing to be watching. The man nearest to him, by the information kiosk, kept checking his watch. Not the casual time check of someone waiting for a train, the precise, coordinated timing of someone following a mission timeline. 8:28 a.m. The man by the entrance touched his ear briefly, receiving communication through an earpiece. The other 2 received the same signal seconds later. Marcus felt the familiar ice in his veins, the hyper-aware calm that had kept him alive through 847 bomb disposal missions. His hands stopped trembling. The tremor that came from too many cold nights and not enough food disappeared the moment his training took over. He began mentally cataloging the station. Approximately 200 civilians in the immediate area. Multiple exit points, but the main stairs would create a bottleneck in an evacuation. Concrete columns that could provide cover or create deadly shrapnel depending on placement of explosives. The man by the kiosk was unzipping his bag. Marcus saw the timer first. Red digital display counting down from 3:47. 3 minutes, 47 seconds. Then the plastic explosive, military grade, approximately 2 pounds. Enough to bring down a significant portion of the station's ceiling. The other two would have identical devices, coordinated detonation, maximum casualties, maximum structural damage. Marcus had been homeless for 8 months. Before that, he'd been Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen, 89th Explosive Ordnance Disposal Company, United States Army. Before the PTSD, before the drinking, before the divorce, before the eviction. But explosives don't care about your housing situation, and people were about to die. Marcus stood up for the first time in 3 hours. His joints protested. Sleeping on cardboard and concrete for months had taken its toll, but his mind was crystal clear. He had maybe 3 minutes before detonation. 3 devices, 3 different locations, probably remotely synchronized. In Iraq, he would have had a team, bomb disposal robots, a command structure, backup. Here, he had a shopping cart full of everything he owned, and 20 years of experience. It would have to be enough. Marcus left his corner and walked toward the nearest device, moving with purpose, but not urgency. Running would cause panic, and panic would make everything worse. He passed a young mother pushing a stroller, a group of teenagers heading to school, an elderly couple studying a transit map. None of them knew they had 2 minutes and 38 seconds to live. The bomber by the kiosk saw him coming and tensed. Marcus looked like every other homeless person, unthreatening, probably looking for spare change or a handout. The terrorist's hand moved towards something in his jacket, but he wasn't worried about one unarmed vagrant. Marcus got within arm's reach and spoke quietly. Military explosive, probably C4. Timer says 2 minutes 20. You've got 2 choices. Run now, or I disable it and you go to prison. The bomber's eyes widened. This wasn't supposed to happen. Homeless people didn't identify military explosives. Homeless people didn't speak with calm authority about bomb disposal. "Who the hell are you?" the bomber hissed. "Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen, 89th EOD. I've disarmed 847 bombs just like this one. Want to make it 848? The bomber reached for his detonator, but Marcus was faster. 20 years of muscle memory kicked in. A precise strike to the wrist that sent the device clattering across the floor, followed by a chokehold that dropped the man unconscious in 4 seconds. Marcus grabbed the bomber's bag and looked at the device. Standard configuration, probably assembled from online instructions rather than military training. The good news, it was crude enough that he could disable it. The bad news, he had 1 minute 53 seconds to do it, then get to the other 2 bombs. "Excuse me, sir," a voice behind him. Marcus turned to see a transit police officer approaching. "Is everything okay here?" "Officer, I need you to listen very carefully," Marcus said, not looking up from the bomb. "I'm disabling an explosive device. There are 2 more in this station. I need you to quietly evacuate the area without causing panic." The officer looked at Marcus, homeless, dirty, bent over what looked like a suspicious bag, and reached for his radio. "Dispatch, I've got a possible. Look at my hands." The officer looked. Marcus's hands moved with surgical precision, identifying components, tracing wire paths, isolating the triggering mechanism. These weren't the hands of someone mentally ill or making threats. These were the hands of an expert. "Jesus," the officer whispered. "You're actually disarming a bomb." "First rule of EOD," Marcus said, carefully separating the detonator from the main charge. "Stay calm, work systematically, and..." He pulled the final wire. Trust your training. The timer stopped at 0:47. 1 down, 2 to go. Officer, what's your name? Marcus asked, standing up and scanning the station for the other bombers. Rodriguez, Transit Police. Rodriguez, I need you to get on your radio and tell dispatch. This is a coordinated terrorist attack. 3 devices. I've disabled 1. 2 still active. Clear the station, but don't announce bomb. Say, police emergency, or people will stampede. Rodriguez hesitated for a split second, then keyed his radio. Dispatch, Officer Rodriguez at Union Station. Code 3, emergency. Need immediate backup and station evacuation. Police emergency. Not a drill. Marcus was already moving, pushing through the crowd toward the second bomber near the entrance. 43 seconds left on the countdown. The bomber saw him coming and started running, abandoning his device. Smart move for him. Bad news for everyone else. Marcus reached the bag and dropped to his knees. This device was identical to the first. Same timer, same explosive, same crude wiring. But the bomber had armed it before running, and Marcus could hear the relay clicking as it prepared for final detonation. 28 seconds. Around him, people were starting to notice the commotion. Some were heading for exits, as transit police began quietly directing them out. Others were stopping to watch, phones coming out to record whatever was happening. Everyone needs to move away from this area right now, Marcus called out, not looking up from his work. Police emergency. A woman's voice. Is that a bomb? Marcus found the primary wire bundle. Red, black, yellow, green. Standard configuration, but the detonator was more sophisticated than the first one. Military surplus. Probably stolen. 15 seconds. Sir, can I help? Another voice. Marcus glanced up to see a man in a business suit kneeling beside him. I'm an Army Reservist, Engineering Corps. Can you identify explosive types? Yes, sir. This is C4, about 2 pounds. Electric detonator with backup mercury switch. If I cut the wrong wire or move it too fast, it goes off anyway. 8 seconds. What do you need me to do? Clear that area. Marcus pointed toward the platform stairs where a crowd was gathering. Get them back at least 50 feet. 3 seconds. Marcus found the ground wire. Always green, always the safest. The timer stopped at 0:11. 2 down. But the third bomber was nowhere to be seen. Marcus stood up, scanning the station. Most civilians were evacuating now, but there were still too many people in the potential blast radius. And somewhere in this crowd was a man with enough explosive to bring down a significant portion of the building. Rodriguez, Marcus called to the transit cop. Third device, male suspect, early 30s, dark jacket, canvas messenger bag. Where would he go for maximum impact? Rodriguez thought fast. Central platform, underground, concrete walls would amplify the blast. And it's the main commuter hub. Marcus started running toward the platform stairs, pushing against the flow of evacuating people. His legs burned. Months of poor nutrition and sleeping rough had weakened him. But adrenaline and training carried him forward. He reached the platform and saw him immediately. The third bomber, standing near a support column that held up the station's main concourse. The bag was open, the device visible, and the man was holding a manual detonator. Staff Sergeant Chen, a voice behind him. The businessman who'd helped with the second bomb was following him down the stairs. Tom Bradley, Captain, Army Corps of Engineers. Captain, that man has a dead man's switch. If I take him down wrong, he releases it and we all die. What's the approach? Marcus assessed the situation. The bomber was 20 feet away, positioned so he could see anyone approaching from any direction. The device looked identical to the others, but with a manual trigger. The bomber had complete control over timing. "Sir," another voice, a young woman in a metro uniform. "I'm Sarah Kim, station manager. There are still about 50 people on this platform who couldn't evacuate in time." 50 people. Families, students, workers, all trapped underground with a man who wanted to kill them. Marcus looked at the bomber, who was now aware he'd been spotted. The man's finger hovered over the detonator button, and his eyes held the flat certainty of someone prepared to die for his cause. "Can you hear me?" Marcus called out, his voice carrying across the platform. The bomber nodded, but didn't speak. "I'm a veteran. Iraq, Afghanistan. I know what it's like to lose everything, to feel like the world forgot about you." "You don't know anything about me," the bomber shouted back. "You don't know what I've lost." "You're right," Marcus said, taking a slow step forward. Marcus took the device with the same careful precision he'd learned in thousands of hours of training. This one was more sophisticated, military-grade detonator, backup triggers, designed by someone with real expertise, but Marcus had more expertise. Working quickly but methodically, he identified the primary circuit, isolated the backup triggers, and systematically disabled each component. Around him, the platform remained silent as 50 people watched a homeless man save their lives with skills they never could have imagined he possessed. Captain Bradley knelt beside him, providing assistance where needed. Sarah Kim coordinated with the approaching SWAT team, ensuring they knew the situation was under control. And David sat against a wall, head in his hands, processing the reality of what he'd almost done. 5 minutes later, Marcus set down the final piece of the disabled device and looked up at the faces surrounding him. 50 people who were alive because a homeless veteran remembered who he used to be. "Is everyone okay?" he asked quietly. The response was overwhelming. Applause, tears, people rushing forward to thank him. But Marcus wasn't looking for recognition. He was looking for David, who was being led away by FBI agents but turned back for one last moment. "Thank you," David mouthed silently. Marcus nodded. "Sometimes that's all the thanks you need." The media arrived within an hour. News vans, reporters, cameras everywhere. But Marcus was already gone, disappeared back into the city before anyone could ask his name. The story broke that evening. Homeless veteran stops terror attack at Union Station. But without Marcus to interview, the focus shifted to the victims he'd saved, the quick response of law enforcement, the community coming together in crisis, which was exactly how Marcus wanted it. 3 days later, Officer Rodriguez found him at a different corner, different station, same cardboard sign. "Marcus," Rodriguez said, sitting down beside him, "the whole department's been looking for you. I'm not hard to find. I'm just easy to ignore." "Not anymore." Rodriguez pulled out an envelope. "This is from the 50 people you saved. They took up a collection." Marcus looked at the envelope but didn't take it. "I didn't do it for money." "I know. That's what makes you a hero." "I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who remembered his training." Rodriguez smiled. "You know what the difference is between a hero and a guy who remembers his training? Heroes act when it matters most, even when they have nothing to gain and everything to lose." He placed the envelope on the ground between them. "There's enough there for first month's rent, security deposit, and food for a while. There's something else." Rodriguez continued. "LAPD bomb squad heard about what you did. They're short-staffed and they need someone with your experience. Training position, good benefits, Chance to use your skills to save lives. I'm homeless, Rodriguez. I drink too much. I've got PTSD and a discharge that's not exactly honorable. You also saved 50 lives with your bare hands and talked a terrorist out of mass murder. I think that counts for something. 6 months later, Marcus Chen was no longer homeless. He had an apartment, a job training bomb disposal technicians, and a purpose that got him up every morning. But he still thought about those 15 minutes. 15 minutes. When everything changed. When a forgotten man became someone who mattered. The key wasn't the bombs he'd disarmed, or the lives he'd saved. The key was the choice he'd made to act, to remember who he was beneath the circumstances that had brought him low. At his new job, training young officers in explosive ordnance disposal, Marcus always told them the same thing. Your skills don't disappear just because your situation changes. You are still who you were trained to be, even when the world forgets it. Especially when the world forgets it. He kept his old cardboard sign in his office desk drawer, not as a reminder of where he'd been, but as a reminder that everyone deserves a second look, a second chance, a moment when someone sees past the surface who they really are. And sometimes when new recruits asked him about the most important bomb he'd ever disarmed, Marcus would tell them about the fourth device, the anger and despair that David had been carrying inside himself, and how sometimes the most dangerous explosives are the ones we can't see. Because that Tuesday morning at Union Station taught him something he'd never learned in all his years of military service. Sometimes the most important mission isn't disarming the bomb. Sometimes it's disarming the bomber. And sometimes the most powerful weapon you have isn't your training or your expertise. Sometimes it's simply choosing to see someone else's humanity, even when they've forgotten it themselves. Marcus Chen had been invisible for 8 months, but for 15 minutes, when it mattered most, he was exactly where he needed to be, exactly when the world needed him, and 50 people went home to their families because a homeless man remembered that he was still a soldier. That's what heroes do. They don't wait for perfect circumstances or recognition or gratitude. They act when action is needed, with whatever tools they have, wherever they are. So now, I ask you, have you ever met someone like Marcus? Someone the world had written off, but who surprised everyone when it mattered most? Because here, at Storyline Universe, we believe that everyone has a story worth telling, and sometimes the most powerful stories come from the people society has stopped seeing. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe to Storyline Universe. We're here to remind you that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear whatever they have left. And next time you pass someone on the street, someone society has forgotten, remember Marcus Chen. Remember that you might be looking at someone whose finest moment is still ahead of them. You just have to be willing to see it.